Thank you for joining me here again on sj's classes. In this video lesson, I'll be giving you a quick outline to English Neoclassical Criticism. This is actually my third video in this series. If you haven't watched my video on classical criticism and medieval and Renaissance literary criticism, please do watch it. Rather than looking at the Neoclassical Age in general, I will be discussing the important contributions made by the prominent figures that we study as part of Neoclassical criticism. The first literary figure that we come across is John Dryden. He was an English poet, dramatist, and literary critic who so dominated the literary scene of his day that it came to be known as the Age of Dryden. Some of his important contributions to English literature are The Conquest of Granada, All for Love, Mac Flecknoe, The Medal, Absalom and Achitophel, Annus Mirabilis, The Hind and the Panther. His translation of the Aeneid remains the best ever produced in English. It was Dr. Samuel Johnson who addressed John Dryden as the father of English criticism. T.S. Eliot echoed the same sentiment when he said that Dryden was positively the first master of English criticism. He was the pioneer, the first practitioner of comparison and analysis in the history of criticism, and therefore it is not an exaggeration to say that English criticism evolved from Dryden. He wrote his earliest critical essay in 1664, a dedicatory epistle to his first play, The Rival Ladies. Until the date of his death in 1700, not a year passed without his writing some criticism, either in the form of a preface, an essay, or a discourse. The most relevant works of Dryden, which are of a theoretical nature, are Defense of an Essay of Dramatic Poesy, A Parallel of Poetry and Painting, Preface to Fables Ancient and Modern, and the most important and widely anthologized piece, An Essay of Dramatic Poesy. Next, we will look at Alexander Pope. Alexander Pope was born on May 21st, 1688 in London, England, and he died on May 30, 1744 in London. He is a poet and satirist of the English Augustan period and is best known for his poems, An Essay on Criticism, The Rape of the Lock, The Dunciad, and An Essay on Man. He is one of the most epigrammatic of all English authors. I hope you are familiar with the term epigrammatic. It means short, sententious statements. For example, to quote Pope himself, a little learning is a dangerous thing. To err is human, to forgive divine. Fools rush in where angels fear to tread. Now, these are epigrammatic statements, and these have been taken from Alexander Pope. So he was the most epigrammatic of all English authors. His criticism is spread over An Essay on Criticism, Preface to Shakespeare, Art of Sinking, Epistles to Augustus, Preface to the Translation of the Iliad, and his Letters. An Essay on Criticism was written when he was barely 23. It was published in 1711. He limits himself in his essay to remarks and critical principles of literary compositions in general. The essay is modeled on the Horatian form and it follows a neat plan, a survey and consideration of the art of criticism in general. You witness that from page number 1 to page number 201. An examination of the important causes of literary misjudgments follow. Characteristics of an ideal critic is what you witness later on, and finally you have a short account of the history of criticism. Much has been said about the use of the term wit by Pope. It was an accepted term which was part of the poetic vocabulary of the 17th and 18th centuries. Johnson's dictionary of 1755 gives 8 different meanings for the word. At least 4 classifications of Pope's use are noticeable. 1. To refer to all mental and intellectual faculties taken together. 2. To refer to the gift of the poet's genius. Pope again used this term to refer to the quality of ingenuity in a poet. This is the quality of verbal ingenuity which was found in the Restoration dramatists like Congreve and Sheridan. And he also used the term wit to refer to the poetic imagination. So these are all that I have to share regarding Alexander Pope. Finally, to the most important literary critic of this period is Dr. Samuel Johnson. Dr. Johnson was born on September 18, 1709 in England and died on December the 13th, 1784 in London. He was an English critic, biographer, essayist, poet and lexicographer. He was widely regarded as one of the greatest figures of the 18th century. His earliest works included the long-form poems London and The Vanity of Human Wishes, and the periodicals that he contributed to The Rambler and The Idler. A rare foray into fiction, the history of Rasselas, Prince of Abyssinia, that came out in 1759, followed, and it proved to be a commercial success. The primary reason for Johnson's enduring appeal, though, outside of his own remarkable achievements in print, is surely the ongoing popularity of James Boswell's fantastically detailed Life of Samuel Johnson that came out in 1791. It was with the arrival of Dr. Johnson on the critical scene that English criticism might be said to have attained some status. According to George Watson, Johnson's critical phase can be divided into 4 stages. The first period consists of the periodical essays written during his middle years, and especially about a dozen papers contributed to the Rambler. The second phase consists of the period during which he wrote the dictionary. The third phase happened when he wrote his edition of Shakespeare. And finally, the fourth phase is the phase during which he wrote the lives of poets. The Rambler articles contain his critical theory. The dictionary and the preface to Shakespeare reveal the scholar in him, and finally, the Lives shows us his strength as a judge of poets and writers of reputation. His is the first dictionary in the world. Single-handed, he worked on his major project, the Dictionary of the English Language, that took him 8 long years to complete. It contains no fewer than 40,000 words, each with illustrative examples. Johnson's edition of Shakespeare, which came out in 1765, was the 6th edition of the great poet in terms of history of editions. The best of Johnson, his magnum opus, is his Lives of Poets. It was written in the last stage of his life. James Boswell calls it the richest, most beautiful, and indeed most perfect of Johnson's pen. He dropped medieval and Renaissance poets and chose 52 lives from Cowley to Gray. It took 4 years for the lives to be completed. Notable among the poets whose lives were not written are George Herbert and Robert Herrick. The not so popular poets whose names were included are Richard Duke and William Wash, but Johnson does not dwell much on their lives. The lives of the poets are arranged in the order of the dates of their death. These essays follow a set pattern of a 3-fold division. Biography is what you witness at the outset, then you confront the character of the poet, and finally, the third section deals with the criticism. With the lives, we may be said to have come to the very end of Augustan or neoclassical criticism. English neoclassical criticism had Dryden at the beginning, Pope in the middle, and Johnson at the end. Thank you so much for watching. Please do subscribe to my YouTube channel to get more video lessons on literary criticism. In the next video lesson, I will be giving you a brief summary of Romantic and Victorian literary criticism. Thank you.